If you want to follow along, I have put the outline on the Bible app. So if you pull up your Bible app, you go to your events tab. You'll see that we're the only live event in New Albany because we rule. And what I do on that Bible app is just put a basic outline that you all can follow. If you don't have your phone, what's cool about following along on your phone is you can jot down some notes. Just be sure that you save whatever you write at the end, because the outline disappears at noon. I don't know why, it just goes away. I saw recently, I think it was this week, someone might have to help me, that The Undertaker retired. Do y'all know The Undertaker? Any wrestling fans out there? I don't follow it like I used to. Got wrestling fans back there. And when at first I saw this news, I said, surely that can't be the same Undertaker that I grew up watching. Because I'm old, which must make him extra old. But it got me thinking, as we were talking about grand entrances, like we did in the sanctuary today. There is no better part of one of those wrestling live experiences than when the wrestlers come in. Where there's all the smoke and they come strutting down, the aisle, and the lights are flashing, and, the projection walls, and there's just the grandest entrances. If you've never been to a live, I've been once, and I would always remember going to see live wrestling. It also led me, for baseball fans, to put it in context. I wish I could have seen it live, but I used to love watching the Yankees on TV. And when it got late in the innings and Mariano Rivera used to come from the bullpen with blaring Enter Sandman by Metallica and just make this great entrance onto the field. I've often said if I had walk-up batter music, I haven't decided which my walk-up song would be. My ringtone on my phone is Jump from Van Halen, so I would think maybe that's a good one. But entrances are everything. They set the tone for what lies ahead. Another example I can give you is the opening number for musicals usually sets the tone for the entire musical. And I'll give you an example that all of you know. You've all seen the Lion King movie, right? How great is that opening? There's no, in my opinion, in all of film, there's no greater opening than that circle of life moment in The Lion King. Still gives me chills every time I watch it. It sets the tone for everything that comes. Palm Sunday sets the tone for all that comes this week. This is my favorite week of the year. It's a hard week to get through because there's a lot of services, so it's a little bit of a workload for a pastor. But it's hard to read everything else that follows this week. This is a tough story. And I wrote in the newsletter, if you all read, that I don't want to pick on those people who are going to show up next week and double our attendance. What laments, I feel bad because they don't hear the whole story. They might hear He is risen, but they didn't stand with us as we're going to do on Friday night and say, crucify him, crucify him. They'll have the discovery of the women at the tomb, but not Jesus kneeling down and washing his disciples' feet, knowing that one would betray him. This is the best story ever written. And it's got its dark chapters, but it's also got its celebration to come. And we have set the opening. We have had our Enter Sandman moment, except it is Enter King Jesus. The people in the first century were used to entrances for a king. But here's how they usually went. So if a king or a Caesar was their coronation, they would enter. They would come into the city, and most times they'd either be riding a big white horse, or most likely they were in a chariot drawn by 4 white horses. And in some parts of the world back then, that chariot might have been pulled by elephants. And they come into the city, and all the people are gathered. But that chariot and that king are also surrounded by their entire military force. It's a giant procession when the king arrived to town, either to be coronated or to celebrate their reign, or because they had won a great battle in victory. So imagine that scene of that king in his chariot surrounded by all of his troops, and then swap it out for Jesus' entrance, where that king is sitting on an old donkey, and he's surrounded by all these pilgrims from all walks of life that have come to Jerusalem to celebrate Passover. And yet they treat him just like he was any king, for they shout hosannas. Praise be the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Praise be the kingdom that he is bringing. Except their hosannas that day were misguided. For those people, like we've talked about as we've read through Mark, they believe that Jesus has come to be simply an earthly Messiah. That he has come to Jerusalem to begin a military and political insurrection. So even though they shouted praiseworthy of the king, they still missed that Jesus hadn't come to face a battle with Rome. He came to face the battle against sin and death. And he hadn't come to conquer Jerusalem. Instead, he had come to surrender. So what I want to do is talk about our hosannas. And I want to talk about how in our lives, our hosannas are still misplaced with this king. And hopefully by the end of my time up here today, during this talk, you'll have an understanding of how can we learn to live out the true hallelujahs and the true hosannas for this king that we celebrate here today and every Sunday. How can we properly direct our hosannas beyond those said and sung today and beyond the palm branches we wave? The first thing that we have to do is we have to show Jesus our true allegiance. So let me go back to the scene. Jesus tells his disciples where they will find a colt. Most likely he's in Bethany, so he sends the disciples on ahead to the neighboring village of Bethphage. And Jesus tells them exactly how they'll find this colt tied there, and how if anyone asks them why they're taking this, they are to say the Lord needs it, and he'll bring it right back. I've had people borrow stuff from me that they've said the same thing, and I'll always come back. But this is Jesus keeping his word. So the disciples borrow the colt. They take it back to Jesus. Now before he sits on it, they lay their coats on it. And then we read that others spread their coats on the ground, while others took these palm branches and lined the road ahead of Jesus. Palm branches they had cut with their own hands. So what this picture is the disciples and all the others showing their allegiance to Jesus. The first part is a saddle. If you think about it, the disciples are making Jesus a makeshift saddle so he can sit comfortably on the colt. And then what are those coats and the palm branches doing? The roads are dusty back then. So any procession, any animal is going to kick up a bunch of dust. So those people are showing their respect and allegiance to Jesus by softening that, by putting their coats in the palm branches so the dust wouldn't get kicked up. And that colt represented that of a humble king, as prophets foretold long ago. And it got me thinking about ways that we show our allegiance today. You know, we don't make makeshift saddles for people. We don't put our clothes all over the ground. And if we do, our mothers tell us to clean them up. But yesterday I went to see Jacqueline's fantastic choirs at organizational competition, and they did very well. But since I was going to support my Silver Creek students, I had my Silver Creek choir shirt on. That was my way of showing allegiance. If we go to a sporting match, be it baseball, hockey, whatever you all support, you can't go without being in team gear, right? And I don't know if they make foam fingers. In college basketball, I love the big heads that they hold up during basketball. It's ways of showing allegiance. We wouldn't show up at a rock concert without a concert tee of our favorite band that we went to see. These are all ways that we show allegiance in our lives. But how do we show allegiance to Jesus? Today we've laid palms before the cross of our Savior, but we've not given that humble King our full allegiance. For that is reserved for our own little kingdoms. That's how we live our lives. As we live our lives in our own little kingdoms, we surround ourselves with people who think the same way that we do. or we surround ourselves simply with our own egos. And we live our lives each in little kingdoms. And I see a lot in our world how those little kingdoms that we live in, they clash. You know, the easiest one to throw out is our little political kingdoms that we live in and how we see those clashes. But we are called to live past our own little kingdoms and to show our allegiance to the kingdom that we praised during our call to worship today. Praised be the one who comes in the name of the Lord, and praise be the kingdom he is bringing. Jesus must command our every thought, such that we meditate on that which is good, pleasant, and hopeful, and that which leads to peace. Jesus must inform our every decision, such that we don't ask, what should we do? But what would Jesus have us do in every given situation? And that answer typically tends to be that which is good and pleasant and hopeful. And Jesus must motivate every relationship that we have in our lives. Ought to come Jesus, our others, and ourselves is the order that you'll hear on a Great Banquet Weekend. Is that Jesus must be the start. And it is his kingdom that we are to seek first. Not only those things that Jesus promises us would be added if we seek first the kingdom. And when we talk about our relationship, and when we talk about Jesus' kingdom and us putting it first, we have to talk about grace. The first stop that Jesus makes after coming into Jerusalem is the temple. He goes there at night, the Bible tells us, and everything's closed up for the day. So he leaves, spends the night in Bethany, and then he comes back the next morning when the temple is hustling and bustling like it always is. It was Caiaphas, the high priest, that authorized the market in the temple. And what the outer courts where the Gentiles were to gather, that court was clogged by merchants selling everything you needed to make a sacrifice to God so that God could love you. And they would stand out there, I imagine, saying, hey, you want God to love you? And you want to use one of my sheep, because God really loves my sheep. And I'll sell it to you at a great price. And when it came to the coin that you had to use for the temple tax, you couldn't use the coin of Caesar, because that had Caesar's image on it. So you had people in that temple saying, hey, you know what? I'll help you change that coin into something that God will accept. I won't charge you a slight fee. That was the corruption that Jesus ran headlong into. And the Bible tells us that he confronted the buyers and the sellers, the money changers and those selling the doves. And he flipped the tables, all under the watch of everyone who was supposed to be in charge. This was the moment that Jesus knew he was going to get killed. He had seen it coming. He had told it to his disciples. It wasn't his entrance that drew the attention of both the religious authorities in Rome. It was Jesus making a public display right in front of the chief priests, but also right in front of the Roman legion stationed at the Fortress Antonia right next door. And Jesus didn't care, because this was what mattered to Jesus. Jesus came to tell us that God's love can't be bought or bargained for. It is freely given by grace. Everything in our lives comes with terms and conditions. And you install new software or you make a payment on your credit card on the computer or whatever, what always pops up is the terms and conditions. And then what do? You click the box that you accept them and you hit send or submit. Anyone here ever read those things? I mean, I would feel like that'd be a week of my life wasted if I actually read through all those. But maybe we should. Maybe there's something in there we're agreeing to. But everything, it seems these days, comes with terms and conditions. And there are fees and surcharges. Speaking of concerts, anyone use Ticketmaster? Oh, $70 tickets, and suddenly you're paying $120, and you have no idea why. Terms and conditions, fees and surcharges. People who say that there are no hidden fees, but there has to be somewhere. That can't be a part of a relationship. It can't be a part of a relationship with others, and it cannot be part of a relationship with God. Because when it comes to God, the relationship, the only term and the only condition is grace. And the only price that was paid on this cross. The only term of a relationship with Jesus is that he loved us first. And the only condition is that that relationship is extended by the free gift of grace. There's not supposed to be solicitors in my neighborhood, but there are. And this one caught my attention yesterday because he was from a lawn care company. And I've got a little mole in my yard that is doing some severe damage to my yard, and I'm trying to fix it. He's winning, the mole, or she. But I was thinking about switching lawn care companies. Here's what I learned, is that there are no contracts in lawn care business. So it's very competitive. So this guy asked me if I had a lawn care company. I said I did. He goes, oh, that's fine. Don't worry about them. You're not on contract with them. I'd like their business. Very good salesperson, this person. So it was okay that I didn't have to honor an unspoken contract. When we talk about our relationships that matter, especially our relationship with Jesus, it's not a contract. It's not okay that we just hand that contract over to whatever it is in our life. That we just hand over our contract to Jesus, to our jobs. Or we hand over that contract to whatever in our lives. Because when we talk about relationships with Jesus and others, those that matter, we do so in terms of covenant. When it comes to contracts, the language is, if you do this, I'll do that. Where the contract says, you do this, and I'll do that. But when it comes to covenant, when it comes to a relationship that Jesus wants to have with you, the language is, I am yours, and you are mine. We are Jesus'. He is ours. But more importantly, we are his. So total allegiance, the realization of grace, and finally to bring our hosannas to our true King, he has to have our total devotion. No ifs, ands, or buts. Some protested the woman's actions. If you notice in Mark's version, you all might have thought that that was Mary, the sister of Martha and Lazarus. That's in, I think, Matthew's version. But for Mark, she's just an anonymous woman. She is the woman with an alabaster jar full of costly ointment called nard. That jar would have been about 12 ounces. It would have been sealed, a single-use jar, and it would have been worth a year's wages. And the Bible tells us in detail, she willingly smashes it and then lets the oil run down on Jesus' head. And imagine 12 ounces of oil that's going to go down onto his shoulders, like the dew running down Aaron's beard of the Psalms. And all the others protested, but Jesus said, no, leave her be. Leave her be, because she did everything she could to prepare my body for burial. The woman with the alabaster jar gave everything she could in that moment. It was probably not the only bottle of ointment that she had. I imagine this woman was probably wealthy to have possessed this. But a year's worth of oil, she willingly just smashed without a thought and spread on Jesus' head because she wanted to show him how much she loved him and how devoted she was. A year's worth. In a year's time, if you step back and think about it, how many hours do you give to Jesus? I'll let you know what a study says. Those of you who have Netflix, you give 600 hours per year to Netflix. An average of an hour and a half a day. How much do you give to Jesus if you calculated it like that? If you're spending an hour and a half on Netflix, how much is Jesus getting? Does he get a quick prayer in the morning, maybe one before you eat lunch, and a simple thank you before you go to bed? Got about 15 minutes a day. It's not going to add up to much in the grand scheme of life. We haven't done all we could for the one who did all he could for us. It's a statement of truth. But there are little things we can do. I always try to give you all some little things you can do. You could come to church a half hour early and join one of our study groups and learn more about it. You could do that. You could volunteer, especially with the weather warming up. We could use the help in the garden, just to pull weeds. You could be a mentor. Last week, my club couldn't meet on Monday night because they didn't have enough mentors. And so you could become a mentor. You could mentor on Wednesday nights with some of the Wednesday Night Live kids. Or here's a simple thing you could do. Let's say you're standing in line. I've used this illustration before, but I want to use it again. Because what you could do is you could ask that person behind the cash register how their week was going. And then what could happen is the person could tell you that they're happy that all the family and people were out of their house who had been there over the weekend. And then you could ask, oh, what was the occasion? And then what could happen is she could tell you that her husband of 37 years died suddenly. And then you could talk to her about how she's doing with that sort of loss. And then she's going to tell you that she's trying to stay busy. She went back to work, but she knows down the road it's going to hit her. And since I'm a minister, that's when I made sure to hand her my card, give her my number, so that maybe one day what could happen is she'll call me up and I can ask how she's doing now. You could do something like that. It's not that hard. And all she might have needed to do was tell someone and share a little bit of grief. There in the line at CVS, of all places. We wave our palm branches going through the motions when Jesus wants our true hosannas. These palm branches only end up burned for the ashes of next year's Lenten journey to remind us of how much we still need saving. More than branches, what needs burning is a heart full of devotion to the one who came as conquering hero on Humble Mount. May today's branches remind us that we are Jesus' branches, bearing fruit of his love by abiding fully in his love. Let us this week smash our alabaster jars and let our love overflow as his love that flowed from his head, his hands, and his feet. Hosanna.
Hosanna.